Winter hunt. Winter has arrived, cloaking the world in a vast sheet of white. The forests lie silent under the weight of snow, and the breath of every living creature turns to mist in the freezing air. But beneath this beauty hides a menace that refuses to sleep. Wild boars. Strong, cunning, and relentless. As the cold deepens, their hunger drives them from the woods into our fields, where they tear through the land like an invading army. Crops that took months to grow are devoured in a single night. In some regions, 70% of the harvest lies destroyed, and with it, the hope of those who worked tirelessly through the seasons. For the farmers here, survival is slipping away like the last warmth of autumn. We cannot stand by and watch another year's labor turn to ruin. This is no longer just a hunt. It is a battle for livelihood, for stability, for the very soul of this land. Our journey begins before dawn. The frost bites into our skin as we load our rifles and step onto the frozen ground. The engine of the hunting vehicle roars to life, breaking the silence of the sleeping valley. The path ahead winds through familiar roads, but today they feel different, heavier, colder, as if the forest itself knows what's coming. The team rides in silence, eyes sharp, minds focused. Every man here understands what's at stake. The land has given to us, now it's time to protect it. As the headlights cut through the morning fog, the air fills with a mix of tension and determination. Then, in the distance, a shadow moves. The first target. I signal for silence. The world narrows to the steady beat of my heart. One shot echoes across the snow, sharp and powerful. The boar falls instantly. But the silence that follows is shattered as the rest of the herd bolts through the undergrowth, dark shapes slicing through the fog with terrifying speed. They are fast, unpredictable, and fearless. I motion to the others, and gunfire erupts from every direction. Each shot cracks through the cold air, blending into a single chorus of defiance. The opening battle is fierce and brief, but it sets the tone. We are here, and we will not yield. The fight for this land has begun. As morning light seeps through the branches, golden rays touch the frozen fields, turning the snow into a glittering sea. The hunt continues. Wild boars, driven by hunger, emerge to bask in the faint warmth of the rising sun. It's their most vulnerable hour. I steady my scope, exhale, and squeeze the trigger. Precision, patience, purpose, every shot counts. Each hit saves a piece of this land from further destruction. The herd scatters, but we are ready. We've studied their habits, their escape routes, their patterns. As they rush toward open ground, we quickly form a blockade. The snow crunches beneath our boots as we move in perfect sync, closing every gap. The wild boars emerge again, unaware of the danger that surrounds them. The next shots come swift and decisive. The echo rolls across the valley like a storm breaking loose. When the smoke clears, the field lies still once more. Victory, for now. But deeper in the forest, danger waits. The boars have retreated into the thick woods, hiding among the twisted trees and dense brush where visibility is low and every step feels uncertain. We advance cautiously, the air thick with tension. Every sound, every crack of a twig, makes the pulse quicken. Then, through the shadows, I spot movement. The shape is unmistakable. I raise my rifle, line up the shot, and fire. The recoil jolts through my shoulder, and the boar drops instantly. Others follow, charging from cover, desperate to escape. One by one, they fall. The echoes of gunfire bounce between the trees until finally, silence returns. Not the silence of waiting, but the silence of victory. The forest exhales. So do we. The hunt is not over yet. Movement at the edge of my vision catches my attention. More shapes, larger ones, skirting the line between the trees and the clearing. I almost miss them, but instinct takes over. I raise my hand, signaling to John, who's already watching from a distance. He understands without a word. That's the power of trust built over countless hunts. He takes position, steady as a rock. The target breaks cover, and in a single clean motion, John fires. The shot lands perfectly. The boar collapses mid-charge. Precision teamwork. Silent coordination. Every second matters in this frozen battlefield. We keep moving, sweeping through the area in unison, anticipating each other's moves without hesitation. One after another, the targets are taken down cleanly. Swift, efficient, humane. No chaos. Only control. By now, the snow is thick with tracks. We know the end is near. The final sweep begins. It's the most intense phase of the hunt, when the surviving boars, cornered and desperate, lash out with ferocity. We split into smaller groups, tightening the circle. The air grows colder, sharper, heavier with the scent of earth and iron. The forest holds its breath. Then, it happens. From behind the ridge, several large boars break into the open, charging wildly. Their hooves thunder through the snow, echoing through the valley like drums of war. There's no room for hesitation. The rifles rise, fingers tighten, and the air erupts in thunderous bursts of gunfire. Each shot strikes true. The chaos fades as quickly as it began. The silence that follows is absolute. The hunt is over. We stand in the quiet aftermath, the cold wind brushing against our faces. Around us lie the marks of struggle, tracks in the snow, shattered branches, and the unmistakable weight of what we've done. But beneath it all is a deep sense of respect. These animals are powerful, intelligent, and relentless. To face them is to face nature itself. This hunt was never about dominance, it was about balance. About protecting a fragile peace between human life and the wilderness that surrounds it. The spoils of the hunt will not go to waste. The meat will be shared with the community, providing sustenance through the harsh winter. The fields will be safe once more, ready to bloom when spring returns. As the last rays of the sun fade behind the trees, I glance back one final time. The snow glows faintly in the dying light, and for a moment, everything feels still, pure, untouched. Tomorrow, the fight for survival will begin again, as it always does. But for tonight, victory belongs to those who refuse to give in. To those who stood their ground against the wild. To those who remembered that even in the heart of winter, the fire of human resolve still burns bright. Night disturbance. Night had fallen over the German countryside, wrapping the vast fields in heavy silence. The last hues of sunset faded behind the horizon, leaving the air sharp with frost and the faint smell of damp soil. Inside a farmhouse on the edge of the valley, John lay asleep, wrapped in the kind of deep rest only long days of hard work can earn. Then, from the quiet darkness, his phone began to ring, urgent, unrelenting. He blinked awake, the sound slicing through the stillness like a warning. On the other end, a trembling voice gasped for help. Wild boars had broken through the boundary fence. They were tearing across the fields, ripping through crops with their tusks, uprooting everything in their path. The farmers' desperate cries echoed through the line, pleading for someone to stop them before the entire season's harvest was lost. John didn't hesitate. He threw on his gear, grabbed his rifle, and within minutes his truck was roaring down the icy road. The headlights cut through the mist, catching flashes of frost on the branches. Each mile felt heavier as the message replayed in his mind: they're destroying everything. His team was already assembling ahead, answering the call as they always did when the balance of the land was threatened. The clock had struck midnight, and while most of the world slept, their battle was just beginning. The night air carried the scent of winter and the tension of what lay ahead. Would they arrive in time to stop the devastation? There was no room for error now. By the time dawn began to pale the horizon, the team was already deep in the forest. The ground was frozen solid, every step crunching under their boots. The wind whispered through bare branches as the men took their positions, forming a silent circle around the woods. John moved slowly, eyes scanning the underbrush, listening for even the faintest sound. Then, movement. A flicker of shadow between the trees. His pulse quickened. Through the scope, the outline of a massive boar came into focus, muscles rippling under its thick hide as it rooted through the ground. John steadied his breath, aimed carefully, and pulled the trigger. The shot split the still morning air. The beast collapsed where it stood, the echo rolling like thunder across the valley. But John didn't lower his weapon. Through the binoculars, he caught sight of another shape slipping away deeper into the woods, a second boar retreating toward its den. He shifted position, raised his rifle again, and fired. The bullet struck cleanly, dropping the animal before it could vanish into the forest shadows. 2 precise shots. 2 threats neutralized. The hunt had officially begun. But the forest was alive with more movement now. The dogs began to bark in the distance, their cries growing louder, guiding the team toward something deeper inside. John pressed forward, heart pounding, following the sound of snapping branches and frantic howls. Somewhere ahead, a larger boar was running wild, thrashing through the brush. The thicket was dense, impossible to see through, but John's instincts, sharpened by years of experience, told him exactly where it would break cover. He crouched low, waiting. Then, just as predicted, the beast exploded from the brush in a blur of motion. In a single, smooth motion, John raised his rifle and fired. The shot was perfect. The boar stumbled, fell, and the forest went still again. The dogs quieted, their work done. Another danger removed. Another step closer to reclaiming peace for the farmers who depended on this land. John wiped the frost from his rifle barrel and pressed deeper into the forest. But just when it seemed the hunt might finally be over, his radio crackled with a signal. The voice came through short and sharp, wild boars spotted deeper inside. Instantly, John signaled his men to regroup. They moved silently, spreading out to form a wide arc. Each man took his place, eyes fixed on the shifting darkness between the trees. The minutes stretched endlessly. Then, like a wave breaking loose, the herd burst into the open. A dozen dark bodies tore through the forest floor, hooves pounding, tusks gleaming. John raised his gun and fired. The lead boar dropped instantly, but before he could reload, the rest scattered at lightning speed, vanishing into the deeper woods. They were fast, intelligent, almost tactical in their retreat. For a moment, only the echo of gunfire remained, then even that faded into silence. Elsewhere, another member of the team, Finn, was already engaged in his own fight. He had tracked a smaller herd that had wandered toward the northern slope, where the snow lay untouched. Hidden behind a cluster of oaks, Finn watched as the boars foraged lazily, unaware of his presence. He steadied his breath, adjusted his aim, and fired. The first shot struck true. One boar fell instantly, the others scattering in confusion. Without hesitation, he reloaded, firing again, methodically, efficiently. Every shot was clean, deliberate, final. Within moments, the clearing fell silent. The herd was gone, and Finn exhaled slowly, the cold air clouding in front of him. Victory was measured not in trophies, but in balance restored. Meanwhile, John was still pursuing the remnants of the original herd. He moved swiftly, guided by instinct, and the faint tracks pressed into the snow. The forest stretched endlessly, the trees closing in like tall sentinels. Suddenly, a rustle ahead, then a blur of motion. The boars were there, charging wildly through the undergrowth. John raised his rifle, tracking them through the scope. His breaths came slow, steady, the rhythm of a hunter who knew no panic. He fired once, twice, again. The shots echoed like drumbeats of judgment. One by one, the beasts fell, their rampage finally brought to an end. The gunfire faded, replaced once more by the quiet whisper of the forest wind. The land was still. The hunt was over. John lowered his weapon and stood silently among the trees. Around him, the snow bore the signs of struggle: tracks, broken branches, scattered earth. But beyond that lay something deeper, the stillness of safety reclaimed. The wild boars had been fierce, determined, and unstoppable in their hunger, but tonight, they had been met with equal resolve. This was not about bloodlust or conquest. It was about protection. About ensuring that the farmers could wake tomorrow to fields still standing, to crops still safe beneath the frost. As the first light of morning spread across the horizon, John's team gathered once more at the edge of the forest. Their breaths rose in small clouds against the cold. No words were needed. Each man knew what this night had meant. They had faced nature's fury head-on and emerged victorious, not as conquerors, but as guardians of the balance that binds life to the land. The wild boars would return someday. They always did. But for now, the fields would rest, and so would the hunters. In the silence of dawn, as the last echo of gunfire faded into the hills, the only thing left was the quiet pride of duty done, and the knowledge that peace, however fragile, had been restored once more to the winter fields of Germany. Boars of eastern Tennessee. Deep within the misty forests of eastern Tennessee, wild boars move like shadows, silent and cunning, their dark bodies blending perfectly with the undergrowth. Every step they take leaves barely a trace. Here, in this rich and unspoiled wilderness, they thrive. For years, their population has multiplied at an astonishing rate, reaching nearly 10 million across the region. What was once a natural wonder has now become a relentless force of destruction. Fields have been uprooted, fences torn apart, and the peace of nearby villages broken by nightly raids. The people who live along the forest's edge now speak in whispers of the danger lurking beyond the trees. Today, we have come not only to hunt, but to restore balance between man and nature, a balance that has tilted dangerously out of control. Whether we will succeed or not remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: this hunt will test our resolve like never before. Our team set out before sunrise, the air heavy with anticipation and the smell of cold pine. The vehicle rumbled along the narrow trail, headlights cutting through the fog that clung to the ground like smoke. Every man was silent, lost in thought, knowing that the deeper we went, the closer we came to the heart of danger. The forest in eastern Tennessee is no ordinary hunting ground. Its terrain twists and folds, dense with oaks, hickories, and shadows that move even when nothing stirs. When we reached the location marked on our map, a clearing often trampled by boar tracks, we disembarked quietly, checking our weapons and communication gear. The moment stretched, time slowed. My finger rested gently on the trigger, every sense sharpened, ready for the first sign of movement. Then it happened. Through the faint mist ahead, a dark shape emerged. Massive. Broad-shouldered. The unmistakable form of a wild boar appeared in my sights, snout to the ground, sniffing through the leaves. Was a giant, easily over 300 kilograms, with tusks glinting faintly in the dim light. I steadied my breath and adjusted the new laser sight. The red dot found its mark. One pull of the trigger, and the silence shattered. The shot struck true, powerful, and final. The beast dropped instantly. The first trophy of the day, a victory that filled the cold air with the scent of gunpowder and the pulse of adrenaline. It was a moment that reminded us why precision mattered. Every hunt was a story written in fractions of a second, and this one had just begun. Encouraged by the success, we moved deeper into the forest. The light dimmed as the canopy thickened above us, branches interlocking to form a roof of shadow. This was the boars' territory, their sanctuary where they foraged and bred. Every fallen leaf seemed alive with movement. Then, ahead, another figure appeared. This one was smaller, focused entirely on feeding, oblivious to our approach. I raised the rifle again, my breath steady, my focus absolute. The trigger squeezed, and the shot rang out, sharp and controlled. The boar collapsed instantly. Everything unfolded with flawless precision, like an invisible hand had already written the outcome. It wasn't luck, it was experience, discipline, and the will to protect the villages that depended on this forest staying in balance. But the hunt was far from over. Suddenly, the forest erupted with noise. A distant crash, followed by guttural squeals. The herd had sensed danger. They began to rush out from cover, breaking through the brush in a frenzy of motion. I caught sight of one charging directly toward Nick's position. Without hesitation, I signaled. Nick turned, eyes narrowing. In a blur, he raised his rifle. The shot came swift and deadly. The charging boar stumbled mid-stride, collapsing into the leaves. A perfect display of instinct and training. The forest went still once more, the echo of gunfire fading like thunder after a storm. It was a brief moment of calm in a hunt that was only intensifying. As we pressed on, I noticed the tracks becoming fresher, the ground torn up by dozens of hooves. We were closing in on another group. I quickly chose a strategic point, a natural choke between two ridges, perfect for an ambush. We set up quietly, positioning ourselves behind thick trunks and fallen logs. 5 minutes passed. Then, just as expected, they appeared. One by one, the boars crept cautiously into the open, their snouts low to the ground, unaware of the danger waiting. I steadied my aim, heart beating slow and even. The rifle cracked, and the nearest boar fell instantly. The rest bolted in panic, vanishing into the woods so fast that it seemed as if they had melted into the shadows. The forest returned to silence, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. Meanwhile, on the southern edge of the hunting zone, Nick had remained perfectly still, his patience unbroken. He knew the boars in this region were clever, often circling back or hiding beneath the thickest brush to outwit their pursuers. He scanned the area through his scope, eyes narrowing. Then, faint movement, a flicker of shape between the trees. "Got him," he whispered. One steady breath, one clean pull. The shot echoed, and another boar fell. I reached his position a few minutes later. He pointed to the motionless shape among the roots, a faint smile on his face. "What's that?" he said, half in jest, though we both knew the answer. It was another clean, professional takedown. Not a single wasted motion. Not a single unnecessary word. This was the work of a man who understood the rhythm of the hunt and the respect it demanded. For Nick, pride never came from the prize, it came from the perfection of the process. The sun began to dip lower, casting long golden beams through the trees. The hunt had stretched through the day, but there was one final encounter that would define it. Amid the dry trunks, the wild boars had almost disappeared from sight, their coarse coats blending perfectly with the earth and bark. The camouflage was flawless. To the untrained eye, they were ghosts. But to us, hunters seasoned by countless hours in the field, subtle cues stood out, the flick of an ear, the faint shimmer of movement between branches. I adjusted my position, lifted the scope, and waited for the perfect alignment. The shot had to be decisive, clean, and final. When the moment came, I took it. The bullet struck true, and the boar dropped instantly. The echo rolled through the forest, then faded, leaving behind the calm breath of evening. We stood there for a while, the last light filtering through the trees. Around us lay the marks of struggle, the disturbed soil, the footprints, the silence that follows resolution. The boars of eastern Tennessee had met their match, not in vengeance, but in necessity. This was never about domination or pride. It was about harmony. About protecting those who lived in the shadow of the forest, whose lives depended on its balance. As night approached, we gathered our gear and began the long walk back. The forest seemed quieter now, almost at peace. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and gunpowder, a reminder that even in the wildest corners of nature, order must sometimes be restored by human hands. And as the stars began to rise over the dark ridges of Tennessee, one thought stayed with me: it carries a sense of dread. The once fertile earth has turned rough and torn, scarred by the chaos left behind by invading wild boars. Their destructive trails stretch across farmlands, leaving behind nothing but broken stalks and despair. Farmers lie awake at night, listening for the rustle in the fields, knowing that by morning, more of their harvest will be gone. These creatures have multiplied beyond control, their hunger endless, their presence unstoppable. Recognizing the looming disaster, local authorities have issued an urgent call for action. It is not merely a hunt anymore, it is a campaign to reclaim the lifeblood of these lands. And today, teams of hunters and their loyal hounds gather at the edge of the fields, ready to confront nature's fury head-on. From the early hours before sunrise, Thomas and his team prepare in the dim light of dawn. Their boots sink into the damp earth as they move silently toward the farmlands. The air is cold, heavy with tension. Wild boars usually raid at this hour, drawn by the scent of fresh crops, unaware that this morning will be their reckoning. Thomas has planned everything with military precision. Instead of relying solely on the dog's instincts, he's equipped with tracking devices, modern tools to match an ancient struggle. Soon, the rhythmic beeping begins, faint, then urgent. He tightens his grip on the rifle and signals his men to halt. The brush moves. A massive silhouette emerges, its tusks glinting faintly in the light. One deep breath, a steady finger, and a single shot tears through the quiet. The beast falls where it stood, collapsing in the very field it had destroyed. A victory, not of sport, but of duty. Before Thomas can even approach, distant barking pierces the morning calm. His hounds have found more. He sprints toward the sound, heart pounding, his boots kicking up dirt as he nears the field's edge. He scans the tall grass, calculating their likely escape route. Then, chaos erupts. A group of wild boars bursts from the undergrowth, panicked and feral. The team reacts instantly. Muzzles flash, and the echo of gunfire rolls across the plains. One by one, the beasts drop. Dust settles, smoke fades, and what remains is the quiet weight of triumph. The hunters stand still, breathing heavily, surrounded by the fallen shadows of what had once terrorized these lands. Yet the hunt is far from over. As Thomas sweeps the next section of the field, a faint rustle catches his attention. His body tenses, every sense alive. He crouches, peering through the stalks. A dark form emerges, silent and deliberate. His rifle rises, perfectly aligned. In that split second, time seems to still, then the crack of the shot breaks it apart. The boar drops instantly, struck clean and true. The field breathes again, safe for now. Another precise victory carved into the morning light. But the battle extends far beyond Italy. Hundreds of kilometers away, in the rugged hills of Spain, another fight unfolds. Finn and his seasoned team arrive before dawn, accompanied by agile hounds trained for the mountainous terrain. The sun rises slowly behind the ridges, casting long shadows that creep across the valleys. The silence here is heavier, broken only by the distant call of a bird and the rustle of leaves stirred by the wind. But beneath that calm lies danger. Wild boars have invaded these slopes too, tearing through olive groves and small farms that dot the landscape. Today, Finn's mission is clear: to stop them before they reach the nearby villages. Barely minutes after settling into position, Finn spots movement. A huge boar charges through the underbrush, its hoofs tearing through the soil. In a single, fluid motion, he shoulders his rifle. The creature rushes toward him with astonishing speed, the ground shaking under its weight. But Finn stands unflinching. One shot, perfectly timed, stops the beast mid-charge. It collapses mere meters from his boots. For a moment, he just exhales, relief, pride, and respect blending together. The land is still again. Another piece of balance restored. There's no time to rest. He signals his team and continues the pursuit across the rugged terrain. The sun climbs higher, and the air grows warmer, but their focus never wavers. Through binoculars, Finn scans the vast hillsides, eyes sharp for the faintest sign of movement. Then, there. A shadow glides through the thicket, half hidden among the scrub. Without hesitation, he chambers around, adjusts his aim, and fires. The bullet finds its mark with unerring precision. The beast collapses silently, a dark figure fading into the earth. Moments later, the sharp barking of hounds breaks out again, echoing across the hills. Another signal. The chase continues. Finn and his men race toward the sound, navigating the rocky slopes with practiced agility. Dust clouds swirl around their boots as they move to intercept. The dogs corner the boar, cutting off every escape. The creature charges wildly, but this time, it meets a wall of coordination and skill. Finn steadies himself, breath slow, finger calm. The first shot is also the last. A clean, decisive end. The echoes fade into the hills, and with them, the last remnants of threat. As the sun dips low over the Spanish countryside, the men stand in silence, watching the light soften over the land they fought to protect. The air is filled with a quiet satisfaction, not of conquest, but of restoration. Across two nations, hunters have answered the call to protect the earth that sustains them. The struggle continues, but for now, the fields and forests breathe freely once again. The balance, though fragile, has been reclaimed, if only for a while. The morning after. A thin mist still lingered over the rolling hills as dawn crept over the horizon. The silence that followed the night felt heavy, like the earth itself was holding its breath after a long storm. But one look at the fields told the story of what had happened. Corn stalks torn and scattered across the soil. Sweet potato plots ravaged as if a battle had swept through. Even the livestock pen, once full of life, lay broken and splintered. The night's destruction was brutal and complete. Wild boars had come again, cunning, fearless, and relentless. Their hooves had left deep scars in the ground, marks of both power and defiance. These creatures were no longer just pests, they had become invaders, bold enough to challenge anything that stood in their way. For the farmers who lived off this land, the devastation was more than loss, it was a declaration of war. By sunrise, Thomas and his team were already moving. The men worked in silence, their expressions grim and focused. Every motion was deliberate, the clink of metal as rifles were checked, the faint click of safeties turned off, the muffled breath before the first step into the unknown. They weren't here for sport. They were here to defend the land that fed their families, to protect the peace that had been stolen in the night. The mist curled around their boots as they advanced, weapons loaded, eyes scanning the slopes. Every shadow could hide danger. Every sound could be the whisper of movement. The hunt had begun, not for glory, but for survival. Their first destination lay across the southern slopes, open terrain where the view stretched wide over valleys and hills. From above, the land looked calm, deceptively peaceful. But down below, movement betrayed the illusion. A cluster of wild boars huddled at the base of the hill, their snouts digging greedily into the soil. Oblivious to what waited above, they foraged in careless hunger. Thomas raised his rifle, the barrel steady, his finger resting softly against the trigger. The air hung still for a moment, then a thunderous crack split the silence. The first shot echoed through the valley, rolling like a storm over the fields. The herd erupted into chaos. The battle had begun. Boars scattered in all directions, crashing through the grass and brush, but the hunters were already locked in. 2 more shots followed in swift rhythm, precise and controlled. 2 beasts fell instantly, their momentum carrying them only a few steps before collapsing. For a moment, there was calm, the kind of eerie quiet that comes right after violence. The men exchanged brief glances. It had been a clean start, smoother than expected. But in hunts like these, the forest always had a way of testing its challenges. Whether this calm was victory or the prelude to something harsher, none of them could yet tell. As the sun climbed higher, they pushed deeper into the forest. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of earth and moisture. The tall trees closed in, their canopies dimming the light until it felt like dusk again. Visibility shrank to mere meters. Then, faint movement, a flicker of shape at the edge of vision. Thomas froze, lifting his rifle with quiet precision. A wild boar stood far in the distance, half hidden by branches, muscles taut and ready to flee. For most hunters, that distance would make the shot nearly impossible. But Thomas wasn't most hunters. He inhaled, steadying his aim, letting instinct and experience guide him. The first shot cracked through the stillness, slicing through the air. The boar bolted, vanishing into the undergrowth, but before it could disappear completely, the second shot rang out. A sharp echo, a dull thud. Silence followed. The beast had fallen. At another position nearby, one of Thomas's teammates lay hidden among the brush. Through his scope, he watched another target emerge slowly from the thicket, sniffing the ground with wary movements. Timing was everything. The hunter waited until the creature stepped into the open, the crosshairs settling perfectly on its neck. One pull of the trigger, and the animal dropped. Not giving it a moment to recover, he chambered a second round and fired again. The second shot struck true. The body stilled. Perfect accuracy, executed without hesitation. The team's coordination was flawless, every action measured, every decision made with precision born of countless hunts. After hours of relentless pursuit, the men finally emerged from the forest into the open plains. The wind swept across the tall grass, carrying with it the scent of gunpowder and the faint hum of insects. They paused briefly, catching their breath. It had been a long morning, but their resolve remained unbroken. Suddenly, from the edge of the field, a faint rustling caught their attention. The hunters tensed, scanning the horizon. Thomas stepped forward, his rifle raised. A low growl rippled through the air, followed by a blur of motion. A dark figure charged out of the brush, its speed startling, its strength terrifying. The ground seemed to tremble with every stride. Thomas didn't flinch. He centered his scope, exhaled, and squeezed the trigger. The first shot struck true, but the beast kept coming, wounded, furious, unstoppable. The battle wasn't over yet. The final encounter. The beast staggered, wounded yet defiant, its rage undimmed by pain. Before it could vanish back into the thicket, Thomas steadied his aim and fired a second round. The shot cut through the cold morning air like lightning. It struck with deadly precision. The wild boar let out a guttural cry and collapsed, the final tremor of its power fading into stillness. The hunter exhaled slowly, lowering his rifle, his heartbeat steady once more. For a moment, there was only silence, the kind that follows a storm, when both hunter and prey know the battle is done. But that peace didn't last. The hounds erupted in a sudden frenzy, their barks echoing through the woods like alarms. Thomas's head turned sharply toward the sound. The dogs had caught a fresh scent, one that could only mean another beast was near. Without hesitation, the team moved, boots crunching against the dry leaves, each step faster than the last. The barks grew louder, more urgent, until the brush ahead began to thrash violently. And then, it happened. Out of the dense foliage burst a massive wild boar, its black hide glistening with sweat and mud, eyes burning with raw fury. It charged straight toward Thomas, the earth trembling beneath its weight. In that split second, time seemed to slow. Every instinct screamed to move, but Thomas didn't. He stood firm, muscles locked in calm readiness, his breath even and focused. One mistake, one moment of hesitation, and he would become the hunted. But this was the test every hunter faces, that razor edge between control and chaos. He raised his rifle with mechanical precision, sights locked on the charging beast. The world around him disappeared. There was only the rhythm of his heartbeat and the growing roar of the creature closing in. Then came the shot, a single, thunderous report that shattered the still air. The bullet struck clean. The massive boar stumbled mid-charge, its power breaking, its fury fading. Within seconds, it lay motionless on the forest floor, the echo of the gunfire slowly dissolving into silence. The hounds kept barking deeper in the brush, their calls urgent, signaling another presence still lurking. Thomas motioned to one of his teammates, who nodded and advanced quietly, crouching low as he followed the trail of sound. The dry grass whispered against his boots as he moved through the thicket, every sense heightened. The barking stopped suddenly, replaced by a sharp rustle. The hunter froze, eyes locked on the faint movement ahead. Then, with lightning speed, a dark shape lunged from cover. The rifle rose instinctively, the trigger pulled in one fluid motion. A sharp crack echoed through the air. The shot hit home, stopping the beast instantly. For a heartbeat, it stood frozen, then collapsed, lifeless among the brush. The forest fell still once again. The men exchanged glances, wordless, understanding. They had faced danger head-on and prevailed through skill, discipline, and sheer composure. These were not reckless adventurers chasing trophies. They were protectors of the land, called upon when balance is broken and order must be restored. As the sun began to sink low, casting long golden rays over the battered fields, Thomas gathered his team and signaled to the hounds. The dogs returned obediently, panting, their work done for the day. Together, they began the long walk back, the weight of their success heavy but proud. This day had not just been about ending a threat, it had been about reclaiming peace for the farmers who had suffered in silence for too long. Each boar taken down meant one more night of safety for the people whose lives depended on these lands. Before leaving, Thomas took a final look at the forest. It stood quiet and vast, concealing its secrets once again. The hunt was over, but the respect remained, respect for the power of nature and the fragile balance between man and beast. And now, imagine yourself in that very moment. The thunder of hooves closing in, the weight of the rifle in your hands, the thin line between life and death stretched before you. Would you run, or would you stand your ground? Let us know what you'd do in the comments below. Today's victory was not merely about ending destruction. It was proof of precision, discipline, and courage under pressure, traits that define every true hunter. Each move, each shot, every decision was executed within state-approved zones, under strict legal regulations that ensure both safety and respect for wildlife management. And as always, every hunt serves a purpose: to preserve the land, protect the people, and honor the laws that govern them. If this story left your pulse racing, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next hunt will take us even deeper, into new lands, new challenges, and new encounters that test the very limits of courage and control.